StraighTallDay.com.
You're now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. What is that? That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is the skills that you need if you wish to teach online. Now, this is an important topic because I talk to and hear from a lot of people who want to get into teaching online in some way, shape, or form, and I'll go into what those ways, shapes, and forms are momentarily. But first, I'll give you a couple housekeeping notes. Number one is that every day I send out a text message for free to everyone who's in my text community. If you didn't know I had one, now you know. If you want to be in it, just text me at the following number, 305-384-6894. Let me know you want to be in the text community. And every day when I send out this message that I call the daily motivation, you will receive it starting tomorrow morning. That's the first note. Second note is, if you would like to work with me directly, you want to be coached by me on things like how do you teach online? How do you start building the things you want to sell online? How do you actually charge? How do you make the money that you want to make? How do you put the structure in place to do all this stuff? How do you get better at doing it? Where do you even begin with any of these things that I'm talking about? If you want answers to those questions and others that you may not have even considered up to this point, here's what you do. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's where you can join my coaching program. I have one coaching program. I do not have options. I have one program. Actually, there are options. You could do nothing and keep trying to figure it out by yourself, which you already know doesn't work, or you could join my program and let me walk you through how to actually do it the right way. That's at workonyourgameuniversity.com. All right, and you're going to check both of those. The number that I told you about from my text and workonyourgameuniversity.com are listed down below in the description / show notes wherever you're consuming this show. Now let's get into this topic. As I told you, there are many people who want to teach online these days. Some of you want to be a coach. Some of you may want to start a podcast or some form of business. Maybe you want to create some kind of product, something like that you want to sell to other people. Many people want to get into the entrepreneurial space and you want to use the internet to do so, which is a pretty good idea because you can reach a whole bunch of people from the comfort of your own couch through the internet. And you can do this in a relatively short period of time. It's not like you have to go to 4 years of college or you have to go through some type of certification program or you have to climb someone else's ladder and get approval from any governing body or anything like that in order to do this stuff. So it's a good idea. Challenges, there are many challenges. I'm not going to list all of them. One of them is there's a whole lot of people also trying to do this. Secondly is you got to figure out who you're trying to reach and how exactly you're going to reach them. Third, you got to figure out what exactly you're going to give them and why they should give you money for it. Fourth, you need the ability to actually deliver the thing that you may want to promise that you can give people. You need to put all of these things together, and they need to be you need to put them all together in a seamless blend so that somebody actually believes you, trusts you, and is willing to part with their money in order to get what you claim you can give them. So today we're going to talk about one aspect of this whole process. There are several aspects, but one aspect is the skills that you need in order to teach online. If you want to be a teacher in any way, shape, or form, let's just say the consulting space online. So when I say consulting, I'm referring to any form of intellectual property. So teaching is intellectual property. It just means, so we know real property would be like real estate, like a house or a car or a computer, something that you physically own and you can physically hold it in your hands or you can touch it. Intellectual property is property, things that are valuable, but they are not a tangible item. So the process for how to achieve a certain outcome, that is intellectual property. Or if you can explain a certain phenomenon, or you can explain a certain subject to people in a way that not everybody could explain it, or you can explain something that a lot of people want to know but they don't know, or they want to understand but they don't, that's intellectual property. So when I say consulting, that's what I mean, your ability to sell intellectual property. This involves things like books, courses, coaching, masterminds, things like that. All of that's intellectual property. Even though a book can be a physical item, it's not the physical book that you're paying for. What you're paying for are the knowledge on the pages of the book. So if you want to deliver value online, or at least you want to use online as one of your methods for doing so. Today we're going to go over the skills that you need to have in place to make it seamless, easy, and value packed. And usually when there's those things, you at least put yourself in position to have people willing to pay you money, to pay you money for the things that you're offering. Everybody got that? Good. Point number one. Topic once again is the skills that you need to teach online. Number one, you need the skill of codification. I discussed codification in episode number 1101. What is codification? It simply means your ability to take a skill, break it down, and explain it to other people in such a way that they can then understand the same thing that you understand. So codification is breaking down a process and then putting it back together in such a way that someone else can now do it, even if they're not you and they don't have your experience or knowledge, because you just shared your knowledge. You codified the process. For example, when I got started online, I've shared this with this audience before. I got started online, mostly the way I first got known online, is a better way of saying it, was through basketball drills and videos I used to put on YouTube. And they're still on YouTube. You can still see them to this day. And what I did in those videos was I was basically codifying how to practice basketball. So I took the stuff that I was doing to get better at basketball. I broke them down, the drills that I was doing to get better, and I explained them to other players. So it's two things that I did, three things. Number one, I understood what it took to get better. Number two, I understood what I had done and I showed it to other people that, hey, this is what I did to get better. Number three, I could explain what I was doing. That's codification. You have to understand it, you have to know what you did, and then you have to be able to explain it to other people. If you can do that, you can codify a process. So think about anything that you've done, that you have achieved the outcome, that you can show people, or it's obvious that you have achieved the outcome through your results maybe, or through your performance. You can break down the steps that you took to do it, and you can explain it to another human being. If you can do all three, you can codify something. Again, listen to episode 1101 where I explain codification. So that's how I got my start online, and I got into entrepreneurship because I started selling the codified process of how to, let's say, how to make a layup with your right hand or with your left hand. Most basketball players can make a layup with their dominant hand. For example, if you're right-handed, that would be your right hand. But they have trouble making a layup with their left hand, which is your non-dominant hand. I was able to codify that process and teach that amongst damn near every other skill you could perform on a basketball court. I explained it in videos, and I did that to the tune of several thousand videos that I put on YouTube, and that led to me making several hundred programs and selling several thousand copies of those programs over the years, simply because I knew how to explain what I was doing. The key skill for codification is your ability to explain what you're doing. So I broke down things like the crossover dribble, as I said, making layups, shooting jump shots, and then again explaining the move while at the same time being able to demonstrate it. So I had the ability to do it and I could talk about it. And there are people out there who can talk about how to do these things, but they haven't done it, and there are people who can do it but they can't talk about it. So I had the mix of being able to do both. And let me be clear that if you have the ability to explain something, even though you haven't done it, you can still make money from it. It may be a little bit harder because you don't have the demonstration aspect that can, basically helps people see your ability to do it a lot better than if you're just talking about it, but that does not preclude you from being able to make money. But I do the same thing now when it comes to things like mindset, business strategy, systems, and execution, which is exactly what we focus on in Work on Your Game University. If you want to teach things to other people, whether we're talking online or offline, you must be able to codify your knowledge, not just have your knowledge. So if you know things but you can't explain it to another person, well, the value of that thing stays with you. Nobody else can get value from it because you can't transfer your knowledge. So codification, it enables you to transfer your knowledge from you to other people. And the more people you can make your knowledge accessible to, the more potential you have to make money. Because if you can spread your knowledge to millions of people, well, you put a price tag on that. Now, millions of people multiplied by your price tag equals, for most people, that would be a lot of money. Speaking of such, point number 2. Today's topic, once again, are the skills that you need to teach online. Going right along with what we talked about in point number 1, you need, this is point number 2, immaculate communication skills. Your communication skills must be immaculate. Not good, not average, not okay. You need to be immaculate at communicating online if you are communicating, period, if you want to sell things online. And this could be offline as well. I just happen to be talking about online, but everything I'm talking about here can also apply to in-person selling as well. You got to be able to communicate. In other words, take what you know, what you understand, what you want other people to understand, what's in your head, what you've experienced, what you've done. Can you get other people to get it, even if they have not lived it as you have? If you want to teach things to one person, 10 people, or 1,000,000 people, you have to be a very, very solid communicator. You need the ability to take what's in your head or on your hands, meaning you've actually done it, your ability to do it, and explain it to another person who doesn't know what you know and hasn't done what you've done. Now, I want you to understand that just because you have done something does not mean you can communicate it to other people. For example, I was just talking about basketball. There are a lot of athletes who can play a sport really well, but they could not teach another person how to play. They couldn't help another person get better at a sport because they have a lack of ability to explain what they do. There's some people who can do their thing really well, but they struggle explaining to another person how they do it. Some people just have a natural or innate ability to do something, but if you ask them to break it down and explain to someone else how they do it so that that other person could get better, they would struggle. The person who's really good at performing, they would struggle at teaching this to another person, because not everyone has this ability to communicate. Communication is a whole skill set unto itself. So just because you're a good singer or a good athlete or a good writer or a good business person does not mean you can necessarily teach other people to be singers, better singers, writers, athletes, or better business people if you don't have the communication ability to do so. So this is a very important skill that basically your ability to communicate translates, or it's a better way of saying it, it multiplies the ROI you can get from your ability to do a thing. When you can do something, you can get a high level of return on investment depending on what you're doing and how valuable it is in the marketplace. But when you can do something and you can communicate that thing to other people, now you multiply, because the communication skill multiplies the return that you can get from just doing it, because now you doing it is basically a multiplying by one. Every time you do it, you get a return based on what you perform. But when you can communicate, now you can take that ability to do the thing and then multiply with the communication. Now you get a multiple based on how many people you can serve. So if I can teach 10 people how to do something besides me just doing it, now I get a return on investment from 10 different people's outputs, not just one person's, one person being me. If I can teach 1,000,000 people, now I can get return on investment from 1,000,000 people. Again, theoretically speaking. So this is why your ability to communicate is a huge thing. There are many reasons why I emphasize communication skills, a must-needed ability in today's world. This right here is one of them. If you are working a traditional job right now, and you can see yourself getting to the end of that road and no longer doing that and going and, quote unquote, doing your own thing, which is a phrase a lot of people use, you need to be very good at communication. All right, this is a must-needed ability if you're going to do your own thing. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you got to be a great communicator, because all entrepreneurs are by definition salespeople. You are taking on greater than financial risk and starting your endeavor, your business endeavor. This means you need to be a good salesperson so you can mitigate that risk by making sales. All right, it is one level of skill to make money using physical capabilities, such as if you worked construction or even if you played a sport, you're using your physical ability to make money. It's a higher level to make money using your mouth and using your brain, such as communicating the things that you know. Making money through communication, everyone, lasts longer, and it allows you to reach more people with less effort when you can make money through communication. You can do it for a lot longer. So someone who makes money with their body, for example, an athlete, you have a certain shelf life. At one point, you can't play that sport at the highest level of top 1% anymore. But when you can make money through communication, you can do that pretty much for as long as you can talk. And most human beings can talk pretty much up to the day that they die. So you have a much longer shelf life when you can make money through your mouth than you do through your body. Human body, eventually every body breaks down at some point. And doesn't mean you can't do anything. Doesn't mean you can't stand up and walk and do things. But you can't perform at the top 1% with the people whose bodies haven't broken down yet. So when you're 60, you probably can't perform the same way you did when you were 30, physically. But mentally and communication-wise, you might even be better when you're 60 than you were when you're 30. So that's why communication lasts longer, and it has it's more valuable than physical ability, simply because it lasts longer and it has a longer shelf life. So any human body is going to break down. It's going to be less than what it was. But your ability to speak can last a whole lot longer than the ability to lay bricks or dunk a basketball. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is the skills that you need to sell online. If you want to sell anything online, you must have these abilities. The third one is relatability. You must have the ability to relate. This could also be called likability, or simply, you could put it under the umbrella of personality. Relatability is your ability to communicate with other people in such a way that they feel comfortable listening to you. Not just can you communicate, not just can you say whatever needs to be said, but can you say it in a way they feel comfortable listening to you, and they would stay and listen to you a little bit more if you want to keep talking. This is your ability to get people to feel as if they know, like, and trust you, even if they have never met you before. That's relatability. Let me say that sentence again. It is your ability to get people to know, like, and trust you, or at least feel like they know, like, and trust you, even if they have never met you before. So listening to your podcast, or watching your YouTube video, or reading your articles, or your emails, or following you on Facebook, that the people in your audience, you want them to feel like they know you in some way. You want them to feel like they like you, and you want them to feel like they can trust you, even though they have never actually met you in person. They just follow you on the internet through their phones, but they feel like there's a connection between you and them. That's what you want, and that's what relatability means. Professional speakers, for example, at least the good ones, are very good at this. I've heard a lot of professional speakers speak. Some of them are good at this, some of them are not. Influencers, YouTubers are very good at this. Podcasters are very good at this. You have to be very good at it, especially when you are limited in mediums. So, for example, if you are doing something like an audio podcast, like right now, most of you, some of you listen to this show through YouTube when I put the episodes out on YouTube. And by the way, if you watch these episodes on YouTube, understand that the audio versions of these episodes come out like 3 or 4 months before the video version comes out. So whatever video you're watching, the audio version of the show is like 4 months ahead of the video version. So most of the listeners that we get to work on your games and masterclass, we've been listened to over 6.5 million times all time. Most of our listeners are audio only, meaning you're listening on SoundCloud or Apple or Spotify. Something like audio, or another example would be written material. So any of you who's on my email list, you get my emails 5-6 days a week. It's just written material. It's only written. And the audio version of this podcast is only audio. When you're communicating with someone through only one medium, as opposed to, let's say, for example, video, where you can hear someone and you can see them, when you have only one medium, like audio or reading, you need to be very good at relatability, because people have only one medium through which to connect to you. So if you're listening to this show audio only, the only way you're connecting with me is through what I'm saying, the words that I say, my tone of voice, my volume, the inflections that I put in my voice, like the way that I say things, how you're perceiving the way that I'm saying things. You can't read my body language. You don't know what I look like. You don't know what I'm wearing. You don't know what the lighting is. You don't know any of that stuff. All you can go off of is how I sound. Therefore, I had to be really, really good with how I'm sounding, because that's the only thing you have to read. If I'm writing something, it's the same thing. The way that I put those words together, and maybe if I use italics or bold or bigger letters or a heading, all of those things are the only things you can go off of for judging what I'm saying. Therefore, I had to be very precise in how I'm writing things, because that's the only thing that you can go off of. Does everyone understand? Whereas if I do something like a YouTube video, you can see me and you can hear me. So now you have more ways to kind of take in a bigger picture of what I'm doing. So you want to be really, really good at least one medium. I don't care if it's written or it's audio or you want to do video. But if you're going to be good in these spaces, you got to be very good at getting your point across through that one medium in which people are consuming you. And the medium that we get the most consumption here at Work on Your Game, and the most consistent and at the highest numbers, is through the audio only version of the Work on Your Game Masterclass. Even though I put material out in all of the spaces, the audio version of the Masterclass gets the most. Actually, I would have to say written material too. So I send out a lot of emails, but the podcast comes out every single day, this show. Whereas written material, I might take a day or two that I don't send anything email wise, but I send emails 5-6 days a week. So that one is a close second, but it's in that order. Is number 1 is audio, number 2 is written, number 3 is video. And the one thing I will say video wise as a caveat is just that YouTube has a longer tail, whereas somebody could be watching a video I put out 10-12 years ago today. It could be new to them. Whereas written material and audio material, usually people are only consuming the newest thing, they're not consuming the old stuff. All right, but all that said, kind of a side note. But if you want to be a YouTuber, podcaster, influencer, any of that, you have to be very good at communicating and being relatable to your audience. People do not stay in your world just because your information is so amazing and informative, because there's a lot of information available to everyone these days. The main thing that keeps people in your world is that they feel like you and they are on the same page, meaning y'all think alike, that y'all have similar ideas, you have similar principles. Even if they don't know exactly what you're going to say about something, they like the way that you go about getting to your point. That's relatability. If you want to sell things online, you need to be good at this. This is your ability to allow people to feel relaxed, calm, and open to what you have to say, even if what you have to say might go against what they think. But they'll be open to it if they feel like they know I can trust you. Just like if a friend came and told you something that you might disagree with, you'd be open to it because they're your friend. All right, you want people to feel that same way about you. And this is a skill that can be developed with practice, but it needs to be deliberate practice. You need to know what you're practicing, why you're practicing it, and what exactly you're getting better at. And this is something that in my university, there are people who I work with on this all the time. So with that said, let's recap today's class, which is skills that you need if you want to teach online. You can use these offline as well, but since many people want to sell online, that's why I'm talking about it. Number one, skill codification. I talked about this in episode 1101. This is your ability to take a skill, break it down, explain it to someone else in such a way that they can understand the same thing that you understand, and they can actually execute on it and get a result because you codified the process. So if they follow the process, they can at least get this baseline result. Doesn't mean they're going to have your talent in your resume, but they can at least get a baseline result based on what you have explained and broken down. Number two, immaculate communication skills. If you want to teach to one person, 10 people, or 1 million people, you must be very good at communication. Keeping in mind that communication lasts a lot longer, has a lot longer shelf life than physical ability. So if you're going to invest in one, invest in your ability to communicate. That's why you hear me talk about communication so often here on the show. And point number three, relatability. Also could be likability or personality. This is your way to communicate with other people in a way that they feel comfortable listening to you. This is what allows people to feel as if they know, like, and trust you even if they have never met you before. You want people to be open to your message because they feel like you and them are on the same page, at least in some way, in the way that you communicate and the way that you go about making your points or sharing your points or your ideas or your principles. All that said, text me. Tell me the best insight you got from today's class. What are you going to do differently based on what you heard? What did I remind you of that maybe you weren't thinking about before? My number is 305-384-6894. And workonyourgameuniversity.com, as I told you, is the place that you go when you are set to take the next step and working with us directly. If you want to get to the next level financially, you want to get to the next level development-wise, personal or professional, if you feel stuck and you want to get unstuck, if you're ready to do something different about your life, career, your business right now, not 6 months from now, but right now, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. You'll see how you can get started, how you can get on a call, and we can talk about what we need to talk about there. All those links, again, down below in the show notes. Work on your game. Dre all day.